Hello everyone and welcome to this data storytelling exercise on refugee resettlement in Australia. I'm Sam and I have my colleague with me Neetu, and we hope you enjoy our presentation. So, observing this first bar chart here with 2 points in time, 1976 and 2015, we can see that resettlement in Australia has decreased by approximately 2,900 people and almost 36%. However, to look at one bar chart with 2 points in time would be way too simplistic to get an idea of the resettlement within Australia of refugees. Looking at this historical bar chart, starting at 1976, we can see that there's been quite a bit of variation in the number of refugees resettled within Australia. Refugee resettlement in Australia hit its peak in 1980 with approximately 21,000 refugees resettled in Australia. Much of this was due to the end of the Vietnam War and changes of government policy within the Fraser government. As we can see, this variation continues, with refugee resettlement in Australia hitting its lowest point in 1989 with approximately 1,200 people resettled. In the last 10 years, refugee resettlement within Australia has remained steady at around 6,000 refugees. However, the one outlier in the last 10 years has been 2012, where the number significantly increased. To take a greater look at that, let's have a look at the yearly variation in the last 10 years. As we can see, quite small variations until we hit 2011 to 2012 and 2012 to 2013, where the number initially increased by 6,000 refugees settled, then decreased by 5,500 refugees settled. So why would this be the case? Well, under the Rudd government, Australia changed the refugee resettlement policy in 2012. This was under recommendation from an expert panel on asylum seekers, with a report containing 22 recommendations for the Rudd government. This in turn led to 12,000 places being granted for refugee resettlement within Australia. However, this soon changed in the following year, with the number reducing back down to 6,000 refugees settled, and the policy of course changing. In 2015, the number of refugees resettled in Australia was 5,211 people. But where were these refugees resettled from?
Thanks, Sam, for the introduction. As Sam has mentioned, the number of refugees in Australia as of 2015 is around 6,000 people. So, where are the modern day refugees being settled from? If we take a look at a geomap, we can see the large bubbles, which indicate large resettlement numbers are concentrated in countries with ongoing or recently past civil conflicts. These include countries such as Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Palestine, and Myanmar. Other nations include Sri Lanka, Somalia, and Bhutan. So now we come to our issue. Is Australia doing its fair share when it comes to refugee resettlement? To analyze this question, let's compare Australia to other developed nations. Australia has been involved in the UNHCR resettlement program since 1977 and has consistently ranked as one of the top 3 resettlement countries in the world. This ranking reflects the number of places made available by various countries for refugee resettlement through UNHCR's resettlement program. But can and should Australia be doing more to resettle refugees? To put this into perspective, Australia has resettled only 1/6 of its promised one-off intake of 12,000 Syrian refugees.
So, to summarize our story, refugee resettlement in Australia has decreased by approximately 2,900 refugees in the time of 1976 to 2015. The refugee resettlement program in Australia peaked in 1980 with approximately 21,000 refugees resettled. Much of this can be attributed to the end of the Vietnam War and changes in the Fraser government's policies with regard to refugee resettlement. The refugee resettlement program's lowest intake was approximately 1,300 refugees settled in 1989. Government policy in relation to worldwide events has largely impacted Australia's refugee resettlement intake. In 2015, Australia's refugee resettlement intake was 5,211 people. And this raises the question, is 5,211 people enough? Well, according to the UNHCR's refugee resettlement program, Australia ranks amongst the top 10, ranking third. However, and having said this, there is public opinion that Australia should stick to its promises and can do more in the refugee space, recently only accepting 1/6 of its promised 12,000 refugees from Syria. We'd like to thank you for listening to our story and have a good evening.